Both parties knew that Pedro never intended to observe the contract once it was made. The Intrubés were relying on the fact that they would be successful in destroying the contract once Elena returned home, whereas the Mafia were counting on their success in destroying the entire Intrubé family.
This legendary contract, known internationally as the Postcard, was signed on a tiny island off the coast of Sicily. It is rumoured to have been signed with blood, semen, and amniotic fluid, though quite how this was done is unknown.
The signing of the postcard definitely goes down with the birth of Harry Potter as one of the most important events to have fallen on the 31st of July in history.
The moment both parties stepped off the island, the war between VSD and HMA, the Hartley Mafia Association, escalated. Our team employed mathematical experts to represent this on a graph. Both companies expanded into further countries, creating the sort of Cold War that rivaled the real one. In fact, many historians hold the adamant view that the Cold War was catalyzed and even controlled by the war between the Intrubés and the Hartleys, despite the numerous geographical discrepancies, political holes, and general wrongness.
It's clear to see that the Cold War was just a misunderstanding. Our conflict, on the other hand, that was a real conflict between us, the Hartleys, and the Intrubé Dynasty.
Pedro died in an attempt to recover the postcard from the Mafia bosses. His son proved to be of meaner stuff. He is only known as Don Crescetto because his real name is kept secret to protect his identity, and Don Crescetto was the name used when he attempted to infiltrate the Mafia. In this he was largely successful. He managed to forge further contracts, which relaxed the Mafia's hold on some of the Intrubé lands. Now they would remain in the dynasty's hands indefinitely, even if all of the male members died. However, much of the Intrubé property was still held as a sort of fief from the Mafia, to be returned once the line was extinguished.
Crescetto was the strongest member of the Intrubé dynasty. He fled to England in 1972, made a secure base in Cambridge and took the Intrubé documents with him, so the claim to his fortune was exactly where he needed it to be, in a law-abiding, secure and generally superior country to the one he'd left. Take that, Italy!
Crescetto was a man of significant political skill, who was successful in gaining a seat in the EU as a senior advisor, and was also internationally recognised for his support of Gorbachev against the Soviet regime. And let's not forget, he invested heavily in class acts such as the Spice Girls, Boyzone and Blue, raising much needed revenue for the Intrubé dynasty.
When the stakes were higher, it followed that the family needed a better man. Critero was this man.
To you, he certainly was.
Oh, he certainly was.
In fact, it was all going so well that Don Crescetto allowed his child, Michael, something extraordinary, the chance to cast off the burden of being an international businessman and have a normal family life. Michael had seen the intensity of the struggle of the Hartleys and the Mafia, and being in sunny England, took that chance. This was the first generation of the dynasty that was not actively involved in the Intrubé's cause. But this period of calm was brief. After the Berlin Wall fell, the Mafia used this distraction to conduct an enormous sweeping raid on all of the Intrubé's estates again, and an attempted assassination of top VSD bosses. The head of the Snicket family, Lee, was killed, and the VSD reserves robbed of billions. It was the most devastating attack on Intrubé property in its 3-century history, and Crescetto's confidence was shattered.
They had trapped their brand, and it cost them dearly.
Crescetto had vowed to never let it happen again. He had reached a critical moment. With a son unable to carry out his will without the necessary training, he had to act fast. He did something extraordinary.
Crescetto finally put to use the biological testing unit set up over 100 years at the height of the Intrubé dynasty's power. He needed an heir, but not just any heir. He was going to create a monster. Or would it be a god? Crescetto never found out. He would die before his grandson began his career. But Crescetto knew that whatever he had created in those laboratories would grow up to be the strongest member of the Intrubé family ever. The artificial embryo was implanted in the womb of Michael's wife, Bella, and history was made.
There is something familiar about the phrase history was made when describing the Intrubé dynasty, because so often with this family the very foundations of society and morality were ruptured. The Intrubés stand easily as one of the most powerful and prolific families ever to have lived, but also the most troubled. By the end of the 20th century, their original duty as protectors of the church had long been forgotten. It had been undermined by their increasingly irrational attempts to hold on to power. They had taken Machiavellian concepts to its limits and gone further. They had made advances in science, theology, philosophy and politics. They had built and lost one of the most powerful corporations in history, VSD. They were the only body to take on the mafia. And of course, they were the only ones to genetically engineer a human being before the new millennium. Ultimately, what defined the Intrubé dynasty was its struggle for power, and its struggle to overcome external enemies. That struggle continues to this day, because the Intrubé dynasty refused to surrender. And with the creation of an artificial embryo, they made room for another chapter in their history, perhaps the greatest chapter yet. The embryo grew into a boy who is active among us today. On the 15th of March, 1993, he drew his first breath. On the 15th of March, 1993, the world witnessed the birth of Wallace Intrubé.
Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, try and understand. Fill my heart with song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
Up as they do their things here.
Vanity, sanity, divinity.
Yeah.
What are you doing? It's great. Fill my heart with song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true.
Oh, Wallace! Sorry!
No, that is going in the outtakes.